Hey guys, so I really loved doing the compare and contrast videos with Candyman, Maniac, and the Slumber Party Massacre. And I think it really takes a certain kind of director to remake a property and do it the correct way. So today, I talk about a original film that is very near and dear to my heart. The remake, which personally I find to be better than the original. What I'm gonna be talking about today is the original Dario Argento Suspiria and the Luca Guadagnino remake. So yeah, these movies are two vastly different properties that exist with the same characters in a similar setting, but they're executed very differently. And I think they both have different goals that they're trying to get towards. And I'm gonna talk about that with each film. But I think both of them succeed in the way that they're trying to get their message across and trying to scare and unsettle audiences. Yeah, up first is Dario Argento's Suspiria. I have a large fondness for this film, not just being a horror movie fan, but being a person who loves filmmaking. I think this movie has some of the most gorgeous cinematography I've ever seen. I love heavily saturated colors, and the way red and blue pop through this whole movie is just gorgeous, and you never forget the set designs of this film. And you can tell that's really what this movie is about, is atmosphere. Less than, you know, a really gripping narrative. Yeah, it takes a very specific type of director to make this work, and I think Dario Argento does a great job with it. Just dropping you as an audience member into this scenario and saying, I'm not really concerned with the narrative, more just the mystery surrounding the film, and building up on really those visuals and the kills that occur during the movie. So yeah, we're introduced to Susie Bannion, who's a young lady coming from the United States to Germany to join a ballet academy. And that's really it. She gets to the ballet academy and weird shit starts happening. We just follow her character and the other characters that live at the ballet school and just kind of what they're dealing with and their circumstances and what the overall mystery of the film is. I'm gonna be talking about the 2018 version. I'm gonna give away real quick what the spoiler of the film is, which I don't really think detracts away from it at all. But the film is surrounding this coven of witches who is in charge of the dance academy, and we're not introduced to that information until pretty far into the runtime. It gives us a really incredible third act sequence where, you know, you realize that these witches are using these girls and killing them off one by one. And that's really what this movie is it's just the atmosphere and that feeling that it gives you. It's accompanied by the Goblin score, which is just fantastic. It's one of my favorite horror film scores. I think, you know, the song we're just chanting witch over and over again is terrifying, but it really adds to that overall experience. Yeah, I don't have a lot more to say about the original Suspiria. It has great cinematography and a great soundtrack. I know it takes some of the people out of the movie, but the ADR doesn't really bother me much. I think it's cool that Dario Argento is more focused on who's the best actor for the performance, and then just, hey, we'll dub over it later. He really doesn't care, but I think, you know, that takes some people out of the movie, but to me, the atmosphere is so good, the setting and the soundtrack, that I don't really care about any of that. You get a little bit of mystery, a little bit of intrigue, but that's the original Suspiria. I think that it exists for a purpose, and I think that it's a fun watch, but if you're looking for like a really deep narrative, that's definitely not the film for you. It has its moments, and it's really engaging, and I love it every time I see it. Now I'm going to talk about the Luca Guadagnino remake of Suspiria, which to me personally is a far better film because it's very gorgeous cinematographically, but it's focused much more heavy on the narrative and the situations surrounding the school, what's going on outside and what's going on inside. And all these plot threads make up a really fantastic film that I think is very underrated, and I was disappointed to see how poor it did in the box office and how little of people went to it, because I think it's one of the most well-executed horror films in the past decade. Yeah, Suspiria also follows Susie Bannion going to Germany to join this ballet academy. But rather than just throw you in there and watch these circumstances play out, we're slowly introduced to different plot themes where Chloë Grace Moretz at the beginning of the film is going to see a psychologist played by Tilda Swinton, who plays 3 characters in the film, and she does a fucking fantastic job. One of the greatest performances I've ever seen. Just how she manages to shift, and the psychologist's character is a man, and just the makeup and everything they did to Tilda Swinton's character, you don't even recognize that it's her. And even though I knew it was from reading about the film, it never took me out of it, and I was always sold on her performance just because of how amazing she does. Yeah, Chloë Grace Moretz's character goes in the office and very early on introduces the concept that these are witches that are running this. There's not going to be any suspense to it. You're immediately going to be told, and the rest is going to just watch it play out. She disappears, and Susie gets to the school, and very quickly you start to feel those weird things that are happening. Johnson, who plays Susie, is quickly introduced to Mia Goth's character, and they hit it off really fast, and Susie's trying to find her place in the school, and they're immediately captivated by her dancing very early on. And the choreography for the dancing in this film is phenomenal. Just the way the body moves in all these dance sequences, sometimes it just feels almost like they're possessed, and it really adds to that payoff at the end of the film, where you're just like haunted by not only these really genuinely terrifying things that are occurring, but you're also like, their dances are so terrifying and enthralling and just so well performed. Yeah, Dakota Johnson does a dance early on where Tilda Swinton's character, who's the head of the dance academy, touches her wrists, and you're like, oh, she's possessing her in some way. And there's a girl who's kind of acting out, and they're worried because she's asking too many questions about Chloë Grace Moretz's character. And she goes into the basement in this glass room, and while Dakota Johnson is dancing, it's causing that woman's body to convulse and like rip around, and she essentially turns herself into a human pretzel. It's one of the most disturbing things I've ever seen in a movie. From that moment on, you just know what you're in for, and there's a lot of horrifying sequences that build up to third act conflict. Most of the film is these 2 heads that are going to be voted as the head of the coven. So you have Tilda Swinton's character, and later, as we find out, Tilda Swinton's character, who's Madame Blanc, and then you have Mother Marcos, who's this character that everyone keeps talking about. And Mother Marcos seems to get voted in once again to head the coven. You can tell that Tilda Swinton's character respects that position of power, but she also kind of quietly has her issues with it. And I think that arises a little bit more when the third act, and you can really see how her character is beginning to attach itself to Dakota Johnson as Susie Banyan. At the same time, simultaneously, you have the set is backdropped by the Berlin Wall, and all the conflict that was taking place during that time in history you have going on with the conflict inside of the dance academy. And those parallels are really interesting. It reminds me of one of my favorite films of all time, which is Possession from 1981, which also has the Berlin Wall as a background to what's going on in the film. Yeah, it's really cool because you have that power dynamic and that struggle of Swinton's character wants to be in charge, and I think she wants to do things a little differently. But most of the witches in the coven are very old school, and they want Marcos to stay in charge. And so you have that in the backdrop while you have this character of Susie continuing through the school. And what's interesting is, her friends start getting picked off one by one, but she's committed to this performance and this idea of performance. And at some point in our reveal, we find out that this Mother Superiorum that's being talked about throughout the film is Dakota Johnson's character. And just her performance and her shift in her personality at that moment in the film is so impactful and well done on Dakota Johnson's part. So there's a lot of things going on in this movie. There's a lot of themes that are really heavily depicted. There's a great romance story in this. There's just a lot in one film. And I think what's really impressive is Luca Guadagnino took a property that's beloved by a lot of people, and rather than just copy and paste Dario Argento's film formulaically, he attributed his own voice, made it his own movie. And I think that really says a lot about him as a filmmaker. To make the same movie again, he took the best parts of the film, the cinematography, which isn't as heavily saturated in this movie, but it looks gorgeous. A great soundtrack by Tom York, which is one of my favorite modern day horror soundtracks. It's just so fantastic and accompanies the film so well, similar to Goblins in the original Suspiria. So you have those things working for him. He's got great cinematography and great sound design. But instead of the movie being about suspense, this is Guadagnino saying, no, we're going to tell you what's going on, but we're going to add other layers of suspense and intrigue throughout the film. And it's going to be played from a different angle. And I think that his is just more effective for me. I love the narrative. I love the performances. It's got a lengthier runtime at almost 2.5 hours, but I feel like every second is earned. There's not a dull moment that I wasn't on the edge of my seat. I think if you're going to make a 2.5 hour movie, make it like Guadagnino and make it worth your while. Yeah, I love the Suspiria remake. I think it's fantastic. I think both of these movies are incredible and that you need to watch them. They're great in their own right. Have you guys seen the Suspirias, the original or the remake? Do you love them? Do you hate them? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you think. Like I said, these are movies I really love quite a bit. I love them for different reasons, and I think all horror fans should watch those. As always, if you could subscribe to the channel and like the video, it helps me out a lot, lets me know what you guys want, if you're enjoying the material, and what kind of movies you want me to review. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Have a great rest of your day.